Good day and welcome. Today's webinar, Drive Value with Network Node Manager and Network Automation with Integrations and Automation. Today's webinar is brought to you by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I'm John Kies and I'll be your host today, and I have my two esteemed colleagues with me. Joe Reeves, who was one of the original folks using Network Node Manager on our for HPE's IT division, and Brian Kaplan, who came along with the our acquisition of Opsware as part of our bringing out network automation. So both Joe and Brian have tons of experience, and we're going to be here to answer your questions and provide all the information you need around Network Node Manager and Network Automation and Integration. So just a couple quick housekeeping notes. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivid website, visible for all members. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We'll send you the link via email once they are posted to the Vivid website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send them into the questions pane in the webinar control panel, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. All right, so here's a picture of the GoToWebinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the question panel isn't expanded, and type in your question and click on Send. So let's get started. Hello and welcome once again. I'm John Kies, Product Marketing Manager for our network management products for HP software. One of the things that we got feedback from customers was specifically on this idea around integrations and automation. And sometimes there's a little bit of a misperception, is maybe that there aren't as many available integrations and automation points for the HPE products, and specifically for the network management products from HP software. So along with Joe and Brian, we're going to talk a little bit about how to how those integrations are available, and also some of the features and capabilities that are built within the products in order to drive those integrations and automations. So our agenda today is, first we're going to talk about the evolving role of the network management team. We know things are changing out there in your world, that the once very specific domain of network management is expanding because of the requirements of the business, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and also how our products really meet those needs. Then I'll hand it off to Joe to talk about products and integrations and talk about some sample use cases, and then we'll finally wrap it up with the questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. So talking about being a partner to the business and how this role of a network manager has changed over, let's say the last 3 to 5 years. If we can go to the next slide. So when we think about the network team, the problems that they're facing are this idea that we need to have, there's more and more network devices out there that need to be managed, whether they're virtual devices or wireless LANs or infrastructure built in for unified communications. Scale is increasing, and the network management solution has to be able to handle that, and that's one of the challenges for the team. Complexity, increased regulation from both internally with security teams, and outside if you have to meet PCI compliance and other industry standards. These are also a challenge that really have to be met by the teams. frequent change. If we think about a world of DevOps and provisioning of new applications coming in daily or hourly kind of environments, the network's got to be there and be able to respond to those requirements. Fewer staff, that's kind of our reality, is we're trying to always get done more with less. And then finally, acquisitions. Acquisitions can completely change the infrastructure, where the business says, hey, we're becoming partners with this other team or this other organization, and now our network has just doubled. And what are you going to do how to manage that kind of infrastructure and environment when that kind of thing happens? And all these things happen from outside the network domain. All these things are being driven by issues coming from the business rather than coming from internally. And that's going to be an important concept as we look forward here. Next slide. Great. So here's some of the issues that we're facing in network management if we're operating in a silo, meaning that we're not looking to the business or outside of our domain for input. We can get blind spots, have unresponsive network with insufficient operations. Symptomatic. Things are happening. It's really hard to track it down. They may be temporary, but users are being impacted, and that slow response time, and that can be related to additional load and kind of error-prone issues that from manual configuration and that type of thing that are creating problems in the website, so or within the infrastructure. So these are some of the keys that we're seeing that can be impacting a network management team as they try to manage to the new complexities within the business. So what can happen here? Like I said, it's greater MTTR, delayed deployments, downtime. All of these are issues that we just absolutely have to avoid, and we need to make sure that we have the tools available to get around these issues and deliver to our customers, being the business. And what can they mean to the business? Lost business opportunities. If we're not able to roll out applications in the way that we want to, or deliver service to our customers, whether they're internal or external, that's going to impact us. Higher operational costs. When we have an issue in production that takes days or weeks to figure out and identify, these slow mean time to resolution time impacts the business significantly and drives higher costs all the way around. And then the most important one is higher management risk. This is the idea that our managers are always trying to manage the risk to make sure that the business is going to be as solid as possible. And if that doesn't occur, if we're not able to manage this, that's when things start going haywire within the business, where the pressure comes down on, okay, you got to fix this now, and this can create a lot of tension and late nights. So when we're looking at network operations capabilities, Joe and Brian have built out a model where they're looking at 4 primary capabilities of basic element management, change management, performance management, and finally network service management. And this is kind of the level of service that we're providing as a network management team. So the interesting piece here is that we've always had this kind of notion around this set of kind of a maturity model. And what we wanted to do was go out with a third party and identify whether this made sense to the industry the way it is now. And so we worked with Dimensional Research go to build a service evolution model where we not only took what we understood as a network maturity model, but went out to network professionals around the United States and around the world and asked them questions about how the service evolves. And through the top line there, you can see kind of the questions they're trying to solve when they're at different levels of maturity. So starting from the left side, it's a basic discovery. What do I have? What version? The next level is fault, performance. The network has to be up to support the apps. Compliance becomes an issue as companies evolve and grow. And then they move off to basic automation and advanced automation. So here's the interesting part. We felt like maybe there would be kind of a linear aspect to this evolution. They start at discovery and go to fault and go to performance and compliance. But what we found out is that a company that is maybe just doing, discovery and fault, all of a sudden can get pushed all the way over into delivering basic automation or even advanced automation. And they have to make leaps in terms of their business service in order to keep up with this. And instead of this very linear model from one step to the next, we're finding out that these companies are having to take huge leaps, and we found out why that is, and I think this is really interesting. So if you think about the left side of the model, where discovery and fault, their focus is only on the network. Their teams are kind of siloed. Tools, maybe they got some paid stuff, maybe they're using freeware, maybe there's some in-house stuff that they've built, and for security, they're just really worrying about the perimeter access. But all of a sudden something happens, and if we look at under basic automation at some of these the focus teams tools and security, all of a sudden maybe applications become a much greater priority as a point of differentiation for marketing, and so they need to roll out applications at a much faster level. And from the teams, they go from a siloed aspect to a DevOps aspect. Or maybe it's from security. Maybe they have a breach or something goes on, and all of a sudden the focus from security goes from a basic perimeter all the way over to a network-centric APT solution. All of these can make these huge leaps in the business requirements, and what we found out is that the primary issue is having the right tools to make that leap. You may only be on, discovery, fault, and performance, but the business will change, and all of a sudden you need to be on a much higher level service. And this is some of the pain that the network management teams that we talk to have faced. In fact, we have a slide from the study in the next slide. This kind of wraps it up, where many times corporate initiatives such as compliance security drove the need for new network tools and integrations with non-network tools and systems. And you look at what's going on there, and all of a sudden, because of these new business requirements, they're having to look into new tools. And what I would say is make sure the tools that you're choosing up front are going to meet those advanced business requirements. That's really the message here. And on the next slide, there's a really great quote about integration specifically that came from the study. So often we bought tools that just as we needed them, it was too hard to rip and replace, so you ended up with a lot of tools. So everyone's kind of experienced this. You bring tools on, they work for what you need them to do, and you kind of just layer on more and more. But then you get to a point, and this is where they're talking, they've been asked by the business to jump up to a new level in terms of their delivery for the business. And the quote is, you realize you have a lot of point tools and they don't integrate with each other. And at the very bottom, then you wish you had thought ahead and bought a tool that would do that down the road. And I think that's a really important thought, that, hey, we need to choose tools now to meet our business requirements. And sometimes, tools that have these capabilities are more complex, they take more compute, they can be more training involved, but network teams need to get out of the idea that they can just survive on the basic tools. And the last piece here is that when you realize the network info has to integrate with the operations tools, help desk solutions, securities, and others, that's kind of the internal piece that's saying, hey, we're trying to deliver an integrated solution that's going to work better for the business, and we need the advanced tools to do that. So this is a great study. It'll be available on our website within the next month, so definitely look for that. But that thought around integrations and capabilities around integrations is a great kickoff to Joe.
All righty, John, thanks. I appreciate you setting the stage for the importance of tight integrations across our entire tool chain. We're going to talk next about some of the more specific product capabilities for the products in our Network Management Center, NNMi and Network Automation. So we'll start by talking a little bit about how these tools are structured. And so if we think about that continuum of operations capabilities that John talked about, Network Node Manager really squarely addresses the fault and performance monitoring portion of that continuum. In terms of being able to manage infrastructure, NNMi 1010 includes the ability to discover and present topology that spans both physical and virtual environments. So with the introduction of 1010, I think probably many of you have seen, we've got the ability now to go and discover and then seamlessly integrate and present virtual infrastructure within the hypervisor, virtual switches and their connectivity. And these solutions are designed really to go into very large-scale enterprise environments, managed service provider environments, and so in terms of the range of device support and the scalability, we're really focused on some of these larger environments. We've structured the product into 3 editions. So at the community level, we have a 25-node perpetual license. We do not include any of the high availability or scale out kinds of features in a community edition. We'll support 3 concurrent users. We're not supporting any of the integrations at the community level. And we're giving you the ability to exercise the basic fault and availability and capacity features of the tool and get an idea of what the capabilities of the tool really look like. When we move to the premium level, that includes this physical virtual discovery, the seamless ability to discover virtual elements and to display those and present those graphically in the tool. Fault management, root cause analysis that allows us to look at a stream of faults and understand the root cause and generate an incident for that root cause. Availability and status of the nodes under management. We have some polled SNMP performance metric collection, as well as quality assurance, which would make measurements across a path in the network and characterize our network connectivity. And we support all of our integrations then at the premium level. When we look at the ultimate level, those are all of the features that are available at the premium level. We add then flow-based traffic analysis, the management of IP telephony infrastructure components, and some more advanced protocols around IP multicast and multicast group management, MPLS provider networks, and then some automation to drive automated advanced diagnostics. If we take a look at the latest version of Network Automation is really covering this portion of our operational capabilities that deal with change management, the management of the configuration of devices in our network, and establishing compliance policies and auditing against those. So we've got the ability to report on SLAs and demonstrate compliance against our compliance policies, and look across the entire infrastructure to be able to manage risk consistently across the infrastructure. And again, we're structured into three editions here. The community is simply a 60-day trial of the product itself. At the premium level, we're working with device discovery and the configuration of those devices, the ability to do mass changes and create and deploy those across the entire infrastructure, and the ability to author and trigger workflows and integrate approvals into those workflows. At the ultimate level, we're really dealing with authoring compliance policies and then going out and auditing the infrastructure against those policies, and where we find deviations from those policies to be able to do immediate auto remediation, and then generate the kind of reports that demonstrate our compliance. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and raise a polling question, and so I'll ask Terry. I think here we go. Polls open now. I'll ask you to respond to the polling question. We're curious about the individual tools that you have installed in your environment. Many of our customers have both network automation and NNMi, and they're taking advantage of the integrations that I'm going to describe here in the next part of the webinar. Some of our customers have really focused on that individual set of capabilities that each of the tools bring. So we're really curious about what you have in your environment.
Great, Joe. So I'll give you the responses here as they start coming in. So early results. Wow, 43% NNMi and network automation, 32% NNMi only, and 11% network automation only. So we'll give it a couple more minutes, or just 30 more seconds here. Looks like things are getting pretty solid. So it looks like to me, Joe, that it's going to be the 46% have NNMi and network automation currently installed. So that's a great thing, because that's really the first point of real integration between the two products. And then the second level is 31% of NNMi only, and obviously there's a big opportunity to really gain some ROI by installing network automation along with that, and then 11% with network automation only. So that's a smaller group that says, hey, NNMi would be a great partner with network automation. And then finally, 11% neither product currently installed. So
okay, great. So that's an opportunity to introduce you then to some of the capabilities of both of these products. All right, so when we think about network management, as as John mentioned, sometimes we'll lead with a conversation around some of the automation capabilities and configuration management. Sometimes with some customers, they'll bring us a set of requirements specifically around monitoring. But when we talk about the capabilities of the portfolio altogether, we talk about this notion of automated network management with a tight integration between monitoring and the configuration and compliance capabilities that network automation brings. And so there's a number of workflows that we've talked to customers about in terms of onboarding devices, for example, where we'll start with network automation. We'll do bare metal provisioning and configure a standard configuration to the device, and then use some of the integration features to feed the information around that device inventory then into the monitoring platform and begin monitoring that. And then be able to loop back around from a monitoring perspective, take advantage of the configuration information in our troubleshooting workflows, and so kind of close the loop between these two products. So we'll talk about some of the specific integrations here in the next part of this presentation. So we'll start by, in talking about integrations, by talking about some of the specific mechanisms that we have available for integrations. Many of our customers will come to us and say, hey, can you summarize the specific technical mechanisms that are available to me around integration? And sometimes they're looking to be able to do custom integrations. Sometimes they're just looking to understand some of the underlying mechanisms that we're using to be able to drive integrations between products in our portfolio. So we've broken those down and characterized those into both inbound integration mechanisms and outbound. And I'm talking here across NNMi and NA. Some of these apply only to NA or to NNMi, but I'll talk in general terms about the integration mechanisms that are available across the portfolio. So the first is around single sign-on. And the single sign-on that we implement today is one that is very specific to HPE software integrations. If some of you have seen our roadmap, you know that we are talking about other types of single sign-on technologies in future releases of the product. So we have a roadmap to extend that more broadly to industry standard single sign-on solutions. Contextual cross-launch is all about the information that we share in common between the two products. So in order to get the contextual part of contextual cross-launch, we need to have a common notion of inventory or a common notion of topology to be able to drive a cross-launch into the other product. NNMi supports the ability to do trap reception, to address particular parts of the product directly. Both products support CLI utilities in an inbound and an outbound setting. The CLI utilities basically wrap some of the programmatic access to the products and can be used to drive automation out of the product. NNMi's got the ability to do bulk seeding and provisioning as well as NA. Our integration with operations orchestration we'll talk about in more detail, but that's also both an inbound and an outbound mechanism. Operations orchestration provides building block content that can drive our programmatic interfaces as well as providing us the ability to launch automation out of the product. We've got the ability to integrate configuration and compliance status from NA into NNMi, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. And then the programmatic interfaces that we offer right now are around very discrete specific operations, and we expose a rich set of APIs there. In terms of outbound, the stuff that I haven't talked about includes the ability to export some of our pulled metric data outbound and integrate that into our operations analytics platform. That's basically a CSV export mechanism to be able to get some of the performance information out of there. And we're also providing topology export and the ability to synchronize change items into our CMDB, and I'll talk more about that in detail. One of the things that you'll find in our support matrix is a set of very specifically tested coexistence scenarios. So we want to be able to provide specific information about elements of our portfolio that we have tested and that are able to coexist on the same platform. So you'll find that in the support matrix, and that's a valuable reference. Now, aside from the actual technical mechanisms to manage integrations between products in the portfolio, let's talk for a moment about the kinds of information that can be made available over these mechanisms. And so this is a bit of an eye chart. We'll touch on a couple of key capabilities. Through the API, we can manage the inventory of devices under management. We can manage users and user permissions and how we group elements under management. The SNMP credential synchronization is something that I'll talk about in more detail. We want a single source of authoritative information for the access credentials for the devices that we're managing. And so we want to be able to share that information across platforms. And then we want to be able to do just kind of basic operations to add, delete, update, read nodes under management through the API. The CLI utilities for the command line effectively wrap all of the API functionality and make that available for automated scripting. So we provide a couple of very discrete utilities as well for scripting and data access and runbook automation. Our CLI utilities enforce our security model, and they enable bulk operations. So when we're trying to drive configuration changes or seed a large number of devices into the platform, the CLI utilities really help us support those bulk operations. We'll talk about northbound interfaces out of each of the tools. We have a very specific role for northbound, the northbound interface out of NNMi that involves incident generation and the ability to annotate or enrich incidents that are going northbound into our operations bridge. So we'll talk about that in more detail. And then the ability to maintain this synchronized inventory. If you'll recall in the continuum of operational capabilities that John described, one of the underlying foundations was a common notion of topology and a common notion of the devices under management. In tool chains where you have built very specific vertical functionality, oftentimes it's left as an exercise to the customer to build that common notion of topology or a common device inventory. We think that's key to be able to support a seamless continuum of operational capabilities. So we build and provide topology and make that available across the entire portfolio. And I'll talk about how we do that in more detail in a moment. And then we touched on cross-launch and URL access. To be able to do that contextual cross-launch, we really want to make sure that we've got a common notion of context, and we expose the information through directly addressable panels.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Let me just pause you here for a second.
All right.
And this slide, is a great lead on. When you're talking to customers, do you get a lot of questions about integrations and, a lot of, because those seem like a lot of integration points to me, and I'm curious, do you feel like customers are really using all of those integration points at this point to drive ROI?
I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. There are the more advanced kind of power user customers that come to us with very specific questions about some of the mechanisms that are available, and these are customers that have very specialized needs and want to be able to build custom integrations. And those customers come to us with very technical questions about the mechanisms and the content of the data that we can share. But I think for the bulk of our customers, they're much more interested in understanding that we have a rich set of capabilities and that we do the work up front to make sure that our products are seamlessly integrated as we present the products and bring those to market. And I'll talk in more detail about our strategy to do that in a later part of the presentation.
Great.
So for customers that are looking for information about our supported integrations, sometimes we'll get support calls for customers from customers who are having difficulty finding information about our integration. So I just wanted to cover where those are documented, where you can get more detailed information on that. So if you visit the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Self-Solve Knowledge Portal, the SSO portal, and log in with your HPE Passport account, you'll want to navigate using the dashboard pull down at the top of the screen to the manuals section of the portal. And once you're there in the manual section, you'll see on the right-hand side, you want to select the document type specifically for reference manuals. There are many other document types that are available through this portal, including white papers and knowledge articles. But you want to select manuals, select the Network Node Manager product under the products section on the left-hand side there. And you can see that the query that I entered here was NNMi 10.10 integration guide. You'll get a list of all of the specific integration guides for the integrations that we support. These are also delivered as part of the the documentation set that we deliver with the product, but if you need to go in and find information ahead of time about any of our integrations, this is where you can pull that information up. And then the next kind of question we get often is, where do I configure these? So given that I've got the integration guide and I understand the tasks that I need to be able to do the configuration, where do I go in the product to enable these integrations? And so in NNMi specifically, those integrations are configured in the integration module workspace. And so for integrations that require more detailed information or offer a number of different options, synchronization options or filtering options or so forth, those each have their own dialog that's available through the integration module configuration workspace. And note that configuration on the peer system is often required to complete the integration. And sometimes there's additional integration or configuration that's required to implement an integration for facilities like single sign-on. But the integration guides, the documents, include testing and troubleshooting procedures as well as specific supported configurations. As I noted earlier, all of our integrations are available at the premium tier, but some of the content that can be shared across those integrations is only available once you install the ultimate product features. For folks that are looking for documentation on our exposed API, the software development kit documentation is actually delivered with the product at both the premium and the ultimate tier, and you'll find those in the directories that we've listed here. So let's talk a little bit about the value of the integration specifically between NNMi and network automation. That value falls into kind of two main categories. We provide an out-of-the-box level of integration for these two products in the portfolio, as I mentioned, because we're really focused on providing that automated network management capability and extending your capabilities across the entire spectrum of the operational capabilities that we talked about earlier. The first is around just reducing administrative overhead. And so for many of our competitors' products, they build and offer functionality in a very siloed vertical slice. And then they leave a lot of the integration effort to the customer to try to stitch together some of the common elements between those silos. So we built in upfront, out of the box, some of the key integration touch points between those verticals, including inventory synchronization and being able to kind of seamlessly propagate changes in our community string between the two products. The second area is just around being able to find and fix problems very quickly. And so what we find in the troubleshooting workflows is that many times we need to be able to present data across that range of operational capabilities in a single context. So being able to present that in the context of a common notion of shared topology and a common inventory means that we need to be able to pull data together from several different modules, present that to the operator so that they can find and fix problems quickly. So I'll talk more about some of the specific elements that support that reduced mean time to repair in the next couple of slides. So let's start by talking about in the NNMi to NA integration. Let's look at this from the NNMi perspective and how we configure some of these configuration or integration elements from NNMi to NA. First off, you'll find in the integration guide that we support a variety of different deployment architectures. Both NNMi and NA have high availability and scale out architectures, and we wanted to make sure that we could support the range of configurations from individual standalone NNMi and NA deployments through NNMi hierarchical GNM architectures for scale out and NA horizontal scalability architectures. So you'll find each of those individually documented in the integration guide. Single sign-on and the ability to enable secure communications if you need that in your environment between these platforms. We support inventory synchronization for either filtered portions of the inventory or the full inventory, and we'll map the notion of security groups in each of the products. In NNMi, that's the security group. In NA, that's the partition. We'll map those together and respect those between the two products. We have a set of rules-based add and delete rules to keep the inventory in synchronization, plus a periodic synchronization that we can configure. And we'll support cross-launch then directly into some of the NA console pages. We've also got the ability to trigger specific NA diagnostics, again, that we'll use in our troubleshooting workflow from NNMi and do things like identify mismatched layer 2 connection states, duplex and speed mismatches and so forth. And then finally, the NA configuration information that we're collecting and the compliance state is integrated into the NNMi analysis panes and dashboards so that during a troubleshooting workflow, the operator has access to those. And you'll see examples here on the right-hand side of the slide where we've got a full configuration history of an individual node that we're looking at, the current compliance status, and detailed information about the current configuration of that node from NA. Now, if we take a look at the integration from the NA to NNMi perspective, again, we've got the ability to cross-launch directly into some of the NNMi console pages from NA. We can configure trap forwarding to NNMi to be able to get events through NNMi and up into the operations bridge. We'll talk about that more in a moment. We've got the ability to trigger node configuration polling and make sure that NNMi is up to date after NA has implemented a configuration change. And then there's a shared notion of outages, whether that is out of service in NA or scheduled outage in NNMi. We've got the ability to synchronize outage information between the two products. We mentioned being able to propagate device credential changes to NNMi. If I do a mass change for my SNMP community strings in NA and I implement that in NA, I want to make sure that NNMi is updated and has the most current notions of my device credentials. And then we talked about having configuration compliance information integrated into the analysis panes and dashboards. All of those integrations are driven by configurable event rules. And we pre-configure these out of the box for NNMi and NA, and we describe how to set this integration up in the integration guide. But some of these mechanisms are also available then from NA to broader industry products as well. They're all driven by these configurable event rules. When we talk about some of the other integrations that are available, we'll talk about from NNMi and NA an integration into our runbook automation tool, which is operations orchestration. So this gives us the ability to drive automation operations out of NNMi and NA, as well as wrapping some of the programmatic interfaces that we expose in each of the tools around OO content and supporting automated runbook content to drive the tools themselves. If we're orchestrating the deployment of virtual appliances, for example, or changes in the network, and we want to make sure that we include our network management tools in that automation workflow, we would typically drive that through operations orchestration. In terms of our integration with server automation, we support the ability to discover the underlying relationships between the servers that we have under management and the network devices that provide connectivity for them, and we can look then across the infrastructure that actually supports our servers and view changes across that infrastructure. So I'm going to turn it over to, let me talk about first about the operations grid bridge integration, and then we'll have Brian talk about some of the specific NA integrations. So in terms of operations bridge, NNMi feeds network domain content into our Operations Bridge function. And Operations Bridge then provides a cross-domain view of incidents and changes within our infrastructure that allows us to track the status of applications and the underlying infrastructure that supports them, and the ability to fault isolate in a troubleshooting scenario and get rapidly into the correct domain to be able to drive troubleshooting. So we support two kinds of integrations up into the Operations Bridge function. The first is around the synchronization of topology and CIs with our runtime service model. The runtime service model is really an instance of our CMDB, our change management database, that's available to the Operations Bridge, and it's used to coordinate our notion of relationships between elements in the infrastructure and to establish dependencies as we're doing troubleshooting. So we have a northbound interface that will share topology information up into this runtime service model. And that same mechanism can be used absent the Operations Bridge product to share topology into our universal CMDB. The second type of integration that I support there is around events. And this is where we configure the northbound interface specifically to forward qualified incidents. These are qualified and correlated incidents from within the product up into the BSM operations platform. And so this is our network domain feed into our closed-loop incident process for the Operations Bridge. This requires an optional download that's available on the software download site for the BSM connector component. And that location and the configuration of that is actually described in the manual to support the Operations Bridge integration. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to talk about some of the NA-specific integrations.
Great, thank you, Joe. So first up, we're going to talk about network automation and its integration with HPE Enterprise's operation orchestration. And there's two main integration points to make here. One is that operations orchestration can make calls into network automation, generally using the available APIs that Joe talked about earlier, as part of an overall orchestration flow. There may be some network configuration tasks or even network automation data that's of use in the broader orchestration flow, and so OO can make those calls relatively easily into network automation. In fact, operations orchestration even ships with out-of-the-box content to make those calls itself. We also have the ability for NA also to make calls back outbound to operations orchestration. And a very typical example here is integrations with change ticketing systems, or even just to kick off some larger orchestration process itself. And overall, the whole value here is that we're automating, working in conjunction with operations orchestration to automate processes where NA generally is participating with its ability to do discrete task automation. And then you see on the slide here some examples of some of these orchestration activities that the combination of network automation and operations orchestration can provide, including, as I mentioned earlier, perhaps integration with help desk ticketing. So think about, you submit a new task, you want to be able to make sure that that task runs only with appropriate approvals, and NA can communicate with those ticketing systems very easily with operations orchestration mediating that process. End-to-end provisioning workflows, rollbacks, those are general orchestration types of flows that you can imagine. And then certainly triage and troubleshooting. Several customers can essentially use network automation data, diagnostic data, for example, or configuration change history or compliance data, and OO can retrieve that information and do some logic, perhaps combined with other external data even maybe from NNMi or other products, to be able to triage and ultimately open up a ticket or even potentially even remediate the issue automatically. And then the NA tunnel provisioning example at the bottom is, again, another example of just a broader orchestration exercise where there might be multiple steps to some process, and we're just directing NA step by step. These are the different things that we want to have done in conjunction maybe with some external other systems as well. So the next area that I want to talk about is the integration between network automation and server automation, all from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise as well. And as you may know, server automation, provides a lot of similar capabilities as network automation, just specific to the server domain. And there's two broad areas of integration here. One is infrastructure management, where the two products actually share topology data. So, for example, NA collects MAC, CAM, and ARP table data from the managed devices, and then it goes to server automation and asks, are you managing any devices, any servers essentially with these addresses? Server automation responds, that information is collected by network automation, and then some relationships are then concluded by that interaction, and then you'll be able to do things like you see on the slide here, some visualization of how the switches relate to the network infrastructure, as well as from an NA perspective, being able to view attached server infrastructure for a given switch. So you could have that dependency view itself. We also share a common data model once the integration is built up, leveraging some of this shared topology data. And then the second area is application management. So there's shared change history, there's shared compliance reporting, and overall shared historical reporting that's made possible by both products' integrations with the Operations Bridge reporter product, which I'll talk about next. We'll just roll right into that integration. In January of this year, we released integration between NA and the Operations Bridge reporter product. That content is available to existing customers on the HPE Live Network portal, and future content packs essentially will be released off-cycle from the NA releases, very similar to new device support and driver packs that you're familiar with today, both for NA, and as you may know, NNMi now has that same ability to release off-cycle device content. And the main use case here, it's really about being able to do more advanced reporting use cases than you can do out of the box with the searching capability built into network automation. So more highly customizable reporting, being able to do reporting on historical data as well as just overall trends. And then if you have multiple products integrating with Operations Bridge Reporter, you could then do some cross-domain reporting as well. Even as I mentioned, with network automation and server automation, they both integrate to Operations Bridge Reporter today. And so a couple examples here based on the content pack that we released in January. You could report on history of changes either to users or devices over time, as well as even trending device compliance state over time as well. And then obviously just reporting on inventory and things like that. Some of those you can do in NA. Some of those will form the basis for some more advanced reporting in future content packs themselves. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe to wrap up and see what questions we have.
All right, thanks, Brian. So in terms of summarizing our supported integrations, the information on the integrations that we're supporting for any particular release are available in the support matrix. So download, take a look at the support matrix. There's detailed information in there on our supported integrations. And you'll find that we have integrations both with other products in our portfolio as well as industry products that we find turning up frequently in customer environments. We're a relatively open platform. We want to be open about our how we drive our integrations and how we support our integrations, and we want to be able to play well in place with more heterogeneous tool chains. At the same time, we want the opportunity to be able to demonstrate that we have a higher value proposition with the tight integrations that we offer across the portfolio. Now, we've been thinking about these integrations so far in terms of individual product-to-product integrations and some of the specific mechanisms that we offer for product-to-product integrations. Let me talk now about a new approach that we're taking to some of our integrations, and this is around the notion of a solution suite that we would offer as a pre-integrated packaged offering and bring that to market. So we're building out these solution suites with specific functionality in response to requirements that we're hearing to implement a more seamless automation-based solution that spans the entire target environment. And so the first of these is this data center automation solution suite. This will be delivered in a virtual appliance package, and it'll be simpler to install, and it'll provide a much more rapid time to value. So you can expect to see other similar solution suites along these lines delivered in the future. This really represents our future thinking and our future direction around how we'll think about integrations. And this is going to drive then further tighter solution-oriented integrations in the future. But with DCA, you'll get provisioning and configuration across the full stack, physical and virtual servers, networks, databases, and middleware. It'll simplify the whole patching process across the entire solution and how we roll out new software. We'll have a single well-integrated view of compliance management then that spans servers, network components, and some of our middleware. And a seamless notion of runbook automation with operations orchestration to be able to drive end-to-end automated workflows across the entire environment. So the components here will include what has been familiar to you as server automation, the network automation component that we've been talking about, and the DMA component, database and middleware automation, all seamlessly packaged into a single solution. So why are customers coming to us? Why are they choosing Hewlett-Packard Enterprise? In part because we have a well-integrated solutions portfolio, and we're approaching our customers' problems in terms of looking at tightly integrated solution suites and solution portfolios. We have a proven track record, and we have demonstrated successes with high visibility customers. We support multi-vendor device management, and our management capabilities seamlessly span physical and virtual infrastructure. We have industry-leading scalability in our products and a quarter century, in the case of NNMi, of demonstrated continuous innovation and product leadership. John, if you could speak briefly about Discover and wrap us up.
Sure, Joe. Thank you very much. So, and thank you very much to both Joe and Brian for the insight and really elaborating on the full set of integrations available with the network management products from HPE Software. So here's our pitch for Discover. You want to get out there. It's Vegas, June 7th through 9th. This is really the place to learn and work with peers to build new understanding of all of our products and the new solutions that are coming to market, including the DCA solution. So certainly get out there and take the opportunity to visit with us, with the product managers, with the R&D team, learn about the futures of products, and really extend yourself into the whole world of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And next slide. We have a short survey and opt-in, so if you guys can do that for us, that would be huge. We are at the top of the hour. We have questions that we're going to respond to that it will include in the wrap-up package, and it'll be available on the Vivid webinar along with the presentation. So from all of us here today at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, from customer service to marketing to product management and development, thank you so much for being Hewlett-Packard customers, and if you're not one yet, we look forward to having you as a customer soon. So from all of us, thank you very much. Have a great day.